Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of our monthly economic update brought to you by the Economic Intelligence Unit from our platform Economy.lk. To start things off, I thought of giving you a growth outlook that was provided recently by the World Bank, where they say that the Sri Lankan economy would grow at around 4.4% for the year 2024. And this was released in their update report in October. And this is actually a twofold increase from their previous report that said that the Sri Lankan economy would grow at around 2.2%. And for 2025, as you can see here in this particular graph, World Bank is saying that Sri Lankan economy will grow at around 3.5%. Central Bank is more optimistic on the growth front, and as you can see, IMF and ADB are a little bit more conservative. And on the inflation front, I thought I'd spend a few minutes here. We saw September 2024 headline inflation reaching negative 0.5% after a very, very long time. And also this continued on to October, reaching negative 0.8%, as you can see here in this particular graph. Now, the one in the middle is what's interesting. What is driving this particular negative inflation or deflation as it's termed? The main component is housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels. And as you can see in the middle graph, that is what's driving this negative inflation. And what you see onto your right hand side is the consumer price index, the index out of which inflation is driven. And if you look at the index value for October 2023, that is last year, for housing, water, electricity, it was 148.8. For September 2024, it's at 134.5, and October 2024, it's at 134.5. So it has come down. Why? Because of the electricity and water tariff cuts that were done by the previous government. So this negative inflation will be transitory, or it will be very temporary. It will pick up because you see this is headline inflation, and if you notice core inflation, that is once you remove all your supply side factors like energy, food, transport, that is what you see here in this particular slide over here. On the index value CCPI core, October 2023 was at 172.4 and the inflation was at 1.2%. Year on year, when you come to October 2024, CCPI core is at 177.5 and the inflation, core inflation, is at 3%. So you see core inflation is in the positive territory when you remove what I said before, like your food and energy costs and transport. But of course, your headline inflation, because of your energy costs coming down drastically, which is a one-time move, or maybe the government perhaps potentially could look potentially at reducing it further, looking at the other variables. But we will see inflation coming back to positive territory perhaps towards the end of the year or beginning of next year. On the fiscal front, what we see is that government revenue from Jan to September of this year has risen by about 41%, whereas government expenditure has increased by about 3 to 4% compared to the same period in 2023. And if you break it down further, customs has brought in about 1.2 trillion. Indian revenue has brought in about 1.1 trillion, close to that amount, and excise has brought in about 150 billion from Jan to September 2024. Now, what this slide shows over here is a breakdown of the customs estimated values and the actual revenue from January to October of this year. And as you can see in blue, it's estimated and actuals are in orange, and actuals have made progress in certain months. So that is how the 1.2 trillion as at 28th October 2024 that customs has brought in, and this is significant because it's 80% of their target value of 1.53 trillion rupees. And the overall government revenue target for 2024 is at around 4 trillion. The tax component of that government revenue, the tax component is at around 3.7 trillion. That's the target for 2024. Moving on towards the external front, what we see is remittances have also picked up compared to 2023. Remittances are at around $4.8 billion from January to September 2024, compared to about 4 billion to 3.9 billion in Jan to September 2023. And that's what you see here in this particular graph. In 2023, we saw in total remittances was at around 6 billion. We can expect about close to more than 6 billion for sure in this year, maybe close to $7 billion for this year in terms of remittances. Moving on to the tourism sector, tourism has picked up compared to 2023. Jan to September, we see tourism earnings at around $2.3 billion and about 1.4 million tourists coming in to Sri Lanka. Now, this particular graph is what I want you to focus on. This is a little interesting in terms of average tourist spent per night and number of nights. If you look here, India tourists coming in from India, the number of tourists coming in is actually very high compared to the other countries, but the average duration of stay in Sri Lanka, which is what you see in red color, the red color little dot, is very low compared to, say, the European countries or even the other countries, the Americas and the Australia. And so moving on the external front, what you see here is that exports are slowly picking up, but also parallelly imports are also picking up, widening the trade deficit. And what you notice in this particular slide, what I've given here is the composition of your exports and imports. So exports from Jan to September is at around $9.5 billion. Imports are at around $13.7 billion. And this is the composition for your merchandise exports. And then I have the service sector exports in the next slide. So Jan to September, service exports are at around $2.7 billion and service sector outflows that are at around $2.3 billion. On the global economy front, on this particular slide, what you see here is from the IMF report. So what they're saying is that the global economy will grow at around 3.2% for 2024 and 2025. Interestingly, they are predicting that India will grow at around 7%. GDP growth will be at around 7% for 2024 and moving on to 2025 at around 6.5%. And the global trade outlook is also very interesting. What you notice here is that the service sector is actually performing much better in terms of growth compared to merchandise exports, and that's what you see here in this particular slide on merchandise trade volume and merchandise trade goods and service sector exports. So that is all we have for you on this particular episode. Please do comment on the section on this particular video. We'd like to hear your feedback and hope to see you soon in the next monthly economic update. Thank you very much for watching.